welcome to another episode of the AlmaFlow podcast. I'm Paollà, Yáelli, a yoga teacher, wellness and spirituality mentor, and every week I invite inspiring people from around the world to explore one simple question. What does spirituality actually look like in the real life? Before you begin, I want to remind you that we are in the final spots for the AlmaFlow retreat happening on the July 23rd here in Brazil, Rio de Janeiro. And if you are longing to slow down, reconnect with yourself, to be in nature, having yoga, spirituality connections, meaningful community, I'd love to welcome you here. And you can find the information in the description below. So now let's begin. Today I'm joined by Sandeepani, a Bhakti philosophy teacher, musician, and yoga instructor. After studying information technology in London, he chose to leave the corporate world behind and dedicate his life to yoga and spirituality. Since 2014, he has traveled to more than 100 countries, sharing Bhakti yoga, mantra meditation, philosophy, vinyasa yoga through workshops, retreats, and kirtan. Sandeepani, thank you so much for being here. It's such a pleasure to have you here.
Thank you very much. I'm very happy to be able to connect and to share in this way. It's always a great opportunity to reflect and discuss on the important things about life.
Yeah, and you are currently in Montreal. I don't know if it's a secret or not, but how now actually you literally just moved, right? So how is the move been
Yes.
so far?
So I moved here a couple of days ago, and I have a lot of friends here within the spiritual community, yoga community. And I saw that this is a very good opportunity. I was based in and out of Miami for about 4 years, and then I finally starting something here. So I'm excited and I'm looking forward to seeing what's in the next chapter.
Yeah, that's very cool and beautiful. Is it hot there?
It's pretty hot, but it's not as hot as Florida, or I don't know how hot it is in South Brazil, but it's like
Yeah,
30.
right now. Yeah, today it's a hot day. It's really warm here, but we were like in a 4 days with a lot of rain and it was a little bit cold. You know, for Brazilians, it's cold like 10 Celsius is cold for us. So it
Yeah,
depends where you are at, right?
as well, yeah.
So I would love to go back to the beginning. Tell me a little bit about yourself. Where were you born? How was your childhood and your family regarding the spirituality? You know, how you grew up, how spirituality first entered in your life.
Yeah. So I was born in the UK, in just north of London, about a 30 minutes drive north of London, in a smaller city called Watford. Some of you may have heard of it. And I grew up in a spiritual family. My father grew up as an Ethiopian Orthodox Christian. It's similar to Western Christianity, but they have different rituals, fasts. They have a different Bible, well, a bigger Bible than the one you find in Europe. But it was a very beautiful religion. When he was in his teenage years, there was a fascist regime or some kind of corrupt government, and most of the young people who were revoluting against the government were getting killed. So my father ran away from the country because he was also under threat of being killed, like his friends. So he went to Kenya, which is just below Ethiopia, and there he met one ashram who practiced Vaishnavism. Vaishnavism is the main religion of India. It's the main branch of Hinduism. It's where most of the yogic world also come from, like Patanjali, like Ashtanga yoga tradition, like Iyengar yoga tradition, etc. So he went and lived as a monk in a monastery there in Kenya, and then he got transferred to Europe later on. And my father is African, Ethiopian, and my mother is Indian. So her family, they're from the west part of India called Gujarat, and many hundreds of generations they're practicing this spirituality. They live a very kind of strict lifestyle. They don't eat meat, they don't drink alcohol, these kind of things. So they're very much focused on caring for the body, caring for the mind. That way you can take your car for a long time. Some people want to drive for a fun time, for a quick ride, but some people, they see their body, it's a vehicle, but they see they want to take it to the furthest place possible for the longest amount of time. So my father and mother, they met in the UK because they're both practicing this tradition. Other name is Krishna consciousness. Krishna is another name for Vishnu or Vaishnavism. Krishna means the most beautiful, the most sweet. So the emphasis in that spiritual path is that spirituality is about peace, it's about sweetness, it's about love. It's not about division or hate or hierarchy or institutional frameworks. It's not about finances. It's about spirituality being in your heart rather than in an institution. So then I grew up in that kind of tradition, that community. There was a very famous musician called George Harrison, who is one of the most successful musicians in the history of the world, and from the Beatles. So I actually saw him once, but at a very big distance because he was such a celebrity. But he donated an ashram, a farm. An ashram is like a temple, like Indian or Asian temple, where you can live and do volunteering and be a monk or a residential member of the community. So there was a school there. It was a private school, and it was for the community. So I went there, and it was a very nice upbringing, spiritual environment. And then when I was a little bit older, 12 or 13, I went to the regular government school. So then I started getting a lot into other things like rock music. My main thing was I was into music, and but I realized that this lifestyle of rock, party, festivals, fiestas, all of this, people are not very happy. They have enjoyment and happiness is not the same thing. Enjoyment is a quick burst of pleasure, a quick buzz, a quick dopamine hit, but long term, it's actually the most dangerous thing to becoming happy is to enjoy it too much because it distracts you from getting the real thing. So
Yeah.
the best way to cheat someone is to give someone something that looks exactly like what you're trying to get, but it's a fake. So you waste time for many years thinking, if I have enough money, if I have enough enjoyment, enough alcohol, drugs, party, sex, then I'll be happy. And by the time you're old, you realize I'm completely empty and I have no peace and no happiness.
Yeah.
So I grew up in this tradition. Then I went to regular school in the public school, and I observed my friends, and many of my friends are very wealthy. Some of them they had different successes in different aspects of their life. But I was studying that no one is still happy despite all of these things that I'm chasing like them. So maybe there's something higher should be chased.
But
And
it was
I
something
was
sorry, it was something that happened during this time when you were like teenager that you really was like the turning point that you say like, okay, I experienced this. I'm like, besides observing how was the environment around you, what happened that really made you think like, okay, that's not the path that I want to go.
definitely. So once there was a monk, he's one of my favorite teachers. He's called Keshava Swami. He's actually quite popular on Instagram and YouTube. So they asked him, he's been a monk since 20 years, and they asked him, so now that you're a monk, does it mean you're free from material desires? Have you broken away from having any material desires? He says, that is the goal, but in the beginning, you may not be free from material desires. But the good thing about becoming a monk is you become free from you no longer have faith in material desires that they're going to satisfy me. So even if you have them, spirituality helps to chop down those weeds to have faith in something which is not real. So I kind of saw many things like the music industry. Some of my favorite people that I look up to are doing acting in very abominable ways. I had a friends group in London, and we were young. We were like in our teenage years, and then the lead singer of this very famous band, we got to know him and his girlfriend and the other guitarists. So we knew them on a personal but distant level. And he was misbehaving with one of our friends who was a very young girl, even though he had a girlfriend. So I was like, just because you're a famous musician speaking about peace and love, it doesn't mean it's actually going to change you. And then I had another friend, he was very rich, and he was always sad and lamenting because his parents, they were top surgeons in the country, but unfortunately, one of the parents cheated on the other one. So then they had a big divorce, big fight, and it broke the heart of him and his brother. So I saw all of these different examples. They say there are three ways intelligent people learn. The best way to learn is by observing the world around you and then making a lesson from that. The second way to learn is if people tell you directly, you shouldn't do this, you shouldn't do that. The third best way to learn is you experience it, you feel it, and then you learn. But the fourth class person, these three things happen and they still don't learn. So that's considered the lowest class of intelligence, that you may hear about it, you may see it, you may be told about it, it may happen to you, but if you still do not change, then it's hopeless, right? So luckily, because I grew up in a spiritual environment, I had this knowledge already. So all I had to do was map it out onto practical examples in my life. So I would say it was small things. And then one of my teachers, who's a teacher now, but he wasn't then. I just knew him vaguely. He actually came in a dream because I used to listen to his recordings online, and he actually came to me in a dream. And after that, it had a big impact on me as well. So spiritual teachers can have a great impact on somebody else.
How was your path with yoga? I know that yoga is the same as spirituality, but I'm talking about the asanas, like the body part. Like, was since you were little, or how was that for you?
Yeah, definitely. So yeah, it's a good distinction. The word asana, I don't know how you say in Portuguese. How do you say asiento in Portuguese?
Assento.
Yeah. So this as root in Latin is the same as in Sanskrit, which means to sit. Like assez-vous in Francais, or in English you say seat, in Spanish you say asiento. So this as root is asana. So asana means preparing your body to be able to sit in meditation. So this modern, actually, Vinyasa and many of these schools, the Mysore brand of Ashtanga, etc., these have only come up in the last couple of centuries. The big emphasis on asana. Before, asana was there, but it was just a preparatory stage for meditation. So my involvement with asana, my involvement with yoga was from birth. But in terms of what the West think is yoga, that started around 10 years ago or 9 years ago. I was always attracted to do asana, but I didn't really know how to start. But I always thought it was very beautiful and very deep, and it really helps you to connect to your mind, to your heart, to your soul, etc. But I didn't know where to start. And I met this lady once. She ran the Bhakti Center Yoga School in New York, in Second Avenue of Manhattan. And I was at a kirtan event in, where was it? In Washington, not Washington, Union Square Park. So there was a lot of people there, and at the end of that event, she came up. She says, "Oh, do you teach yoga?" I says, "No." She says, "You look like a yoga teacher." I thought you're a yoga teacher because we were friends of a friend. Like I knew her husband, I knew some of her friends, and then I says, "No, no, I want to start getting into yoga though." And then she's like, "Okay, from now on, I want you to come at least once a week to Bhakti Center. I don't want you to pay, but I want you to come to the classes, and later on, we'll make you a yoga teacher." So I was only in New York for the summer, so I went to a few classes and then I got inspired. And then later on, I did a yoga teacher training in Miami with a very nice school called Ahana Yoga. So, yeah.
Ahana Yoga in Miami.
Yeah.
It's where I was doing actually it's been a year that I was doing the teacher training there with them.
Yeah.
So it was really funny. Like I saw just the advertisement online. I didn't know them. And then I was like, okay, few spots left. I was like, okay, let me try. And then they gave me a scholarship. I was like, oh, I can't believe. So then I flew to Costa Rica in a week because I thought it would be like next month. And then Elisa told me, no, it's next week. I was like, oh my God, how am I going to travel to Costa Rica in a week? It was just funny. So it's beautiful to see that when it's meant to be, the universe really finds a way just to everything flow. So it's really nice. And then it really, I always had a thing with the kirtan, with the mantras. I really love it. But because I had a Jewish background, was very challenging for me developing myself as a yogini. And at the same time, like have in the back of my head, like, a rabbi saying, listen, you cannot worship a Krishna. And then I was like, I love Krishna. What do I do now? I love singing for Krishna, So it was a really funny process. And then last year with Ahana, with Don, knowing that she all this background, all this mix they have there, it made me feel really in a safe space and home, like just to be myself, and doesn't matter, I like kirtan, I love singing the mantras, it really makes me feel good, chant. So it was a turning point there too.
Yeah, it's a very interesting topic about Judaism and Indic religion or Hinduism or Vaishnavism. because if you actually study the world of yoga, the Jewish community are disproportionately much more interested in yoga than most other communities. And most of the very famous yogis, especially in North America, are from a Jewish background as well. The singers of kirtan, the most famous one, now he's not as famous because he's older, but when he was the one who started kirtan and he made it a big thing, he's called Krishna Das. He's from a Jewish background. Some of the
I didn't
greatest
know
yoga teachers in New York,
that.
they're also from Jewish background. And I
Mhm.
think there's a few more, but I can't remember clearly, but there's many. So one reason is because the Jewish community, they've all been interested in spirituality, but they're trying to find the balance. Because as you know, within the practice of Judaism being more than 3,000 years old, there are many rituals, there are many things you say in Hebrew, there are many kind of things, hairstyles, certain dress codes, etc., depending on which branch, which denomination you follow, which are different than the norm. Whereas Christianity in the West doesn't really have a very clear marker anymore. It used to. They used to have a hairstyle, they have a dress code, etc. Fasting, they used to do so many things, many rituals for initiation, accepting in the church. So the people in the Jewish community, they find Indian religion similar because a lot of the rituals and the processes are very similar to how they're practiced in India, and it's not a big shock for them. Whereas people who have no religious background, to learn about fasting, to learn about rituals, to learn about certain things, it can be a shock for them. But also historically, like the Semitic tribes, they have a very strong influence from the East also, especially through Zoroastrianism. Like a lot of the Jewish theology, early Judaism, it was not monotheist, it was a monolatry. Monolatry means there are many gods, but you focus on one God, who is the God of your particular tribe, etc. So this is how the Western academe discuss the historical like growth and evolution of Judaism. So even historically, it's very connected to Asia through Zoroastrianism and then all the way further in Iran to India. And also, the way it's interpreted is in very different ways. For instance, in the time of Jesus, you had like the Essenes, you also had the Pharisees, Maccabees, but the Essenes were very, very similar to the Indic thought. They believed in a crude version of reincarnation. They had a more personal conception of God in the sense that God may have a form, he may have a personality. It's not such an impersonal thing. Like, and it's not such a high emphasis on reverence. Like you cannot say the name of God. It's so high, it's so great. So the Essenes, they were more of an esoteric group, which is a lot of Indic religion. They're very esoteric. They were also vegetarian. Jesus was vegetarian. John the Baptist was vegetarian. Some historians say Jesus' family members were all vegetarian. So a lot of things which you find in India, you find also in the more esoteric branches of Abrahamic faith, and especially the Essenes. And of course, we know a huge part of yoga is ahimsa, right? So you find that also in the Jewish culture, this concept of ahimsa. So they're like long lost family members. They're like cousins, you can say, or maybe
Cousins.
the
Yeah,
Vedic is a bit older. So maybe the Vedic is like the great uncle because obviously it's tens of thousands of years old. But at least they're like it's like the uncle of the
it's like
Semitic
my uncle.
religions, Abrahamic faiths.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So, you have so much wisdom about so many things, and you've taught in so many countries already, and you see how knowledge you have about cultures. Do you notice difference in how people receive yoga, bhakti, depending on where they live?
I think depending on how it's presented, the ultimate offering of yoga is basically to understand yourself, to understand that I'm more than the body, to understand that the only thing the soul is looking for is a loving relationship. But because we're looking for loving relationship through dead bodies, people who have activated dead bodies, or through objects like money, house, car, we say, I love my phone, I love my house. So we're thinking you can love, but how can you love things which are dead? You cannot love a house. Love is a relationship, it's active, it's not static. You can say, I enjoy my house. So we can see that when you present things in the right way, that yoga helps to fulfill the universal and inherent need of every living being, which is to connect in a loving relationship back to the Creator, back to the most lovable person in the world, the only person who will never reject us. Everyone else in this world, they may reject us, but God will never reject us. So when people understand yoga in a deeper level and how it actually fulfills all of the needs of the person on the deepest level, then it's very easy for everyone to accept. But if it's not, then if you only present it in a more cultural, ethnic kind of action-based, method, like through physical yoga, through physical music, but there's no deeper meaning behind, then according to the culture, it may vary. But when you're only presenting the essence, then everyone accepts it universally. But some people have cultural blocks also. Like I had a friend in Miami. She was from a Jewish background, so she was very strict. So she said to me, she was in Ahana. She says, I don't want to sing mantra. She came to the class because we're friends. She says, I don't want to sing mantra. I may be singing to some devils or to some demons or something. Sometimes people who don't know, they think it's something like that, right? So I says, well, the lady who's singing, the boss of the studio, she's a practicing Jew. So if it was so bad, why is she singing? And her husband is also practicing. So I said, don't worry. And then she said, still, they may be doing it, but I'm scared for me. So I said, don't worry. What the name? She was singing Krishna. So the name Krishna means the most beautiful. So do you think God is the most beautiful? She said, yes. So I said, why don't you meditate like that? And then I said, even the word Allah can be used by Christians and Jews who speak Arabic, because Allah just means the most powerful, or name for God, right? And then I said, even the word God, according to Harvard University, it comes from Sanskrit anyway. So it's also a religious word from India. What's the problem? Because English is a Germanic language, and the word good and the word God, they come from gut in German. And gut is a guttural sound. So ha and ga is the same part of your throat, right? So most of the European influence came through Persia, because west of India is Persia, and Persian language with the accent, the Indian words changed. So it originally was not gut, but it was originally hut. This is according to Harvard University, Oxford University. It's not like some speculation. This is mainstream linguistics. So the word hut or hutam in Sanskrit, hutam is the infinitive of the hut. It means one who you pray to, or one who you invoke, or one who is worthy of calling out to. So that is according to Harvard University, all scholars unanimously, they accept that is a cognate, or it's a linguistic match from different languages. So I said, even the word God is religious connected to India. So where are you going to draw the line? And the Semitic languages, Hebrew, it would have evolved from another language. So if you're so finicky about language, then where do you draw the line? So then she accepted at the end. When you explain it nicely, then she accepted.
Yeah, but it's all about the intention also, right?
Exactly,
what is your intention? What is in your heart, right? So much there.
Yeah, intention is the most important thing behind everything.
Yeah. One thing that really fascinates me is that you speak several languages. You know so much about language. How did that happen? Has learning different languages changed the way you connect with the people? That was the way that why you learned so many and you speak so well, even in Spanish. How that happened with you?
So there is a cheat code to learning languages, that if you learn the language family, it's much easier to learn a new language. For instance, if you already know Spanish, falar en portugués no es muito difícil. Muito parecido, no? I don't really know Portuguese, but I'm just speculating, right? So because actually all Latin languages, they were started as Latin, but over time people, they have slang, they have dialects, they reduce complexity in language. Like if words are too long, they shorten them. You see that in Portuguese compared to Spanish, or they change the grammar to make it more easy. So actually every Latin language is just a corrupt version of Latin. Every language like Swedish, Danish, English, they're just corrupted version of German, maybe mixed with new words later on. So the same thing around the world. So if you learn the older languages, you automatically have access to the newer ones, because you understand a deeper principle behind those languages. But the main reason I like language, I write this in my book about mantras. It's one of the things which I really believe, and it was one of the main points in the book, is that language is the most effective medium through which culture is spread. In other words, if you want to impact other people's lives positively, then you have to be a good communicator. You have to be able to share, to teach, to express what you mean clearly so people don't misunderstand you, etc. But it can be an astrological thing. Some people are better at languages, some are not. Some are more inclined to sports, some are more physically inclined. Some they're more expert at dancing, some they're good at languages. So everyone is different. For some reason, I feel connected to communication and language, and that helps. It helps. And if you know Sanskrit, it helps you learn Indian languages and understand some Latin languages, European languages. And if you know basic, of Latin, it helps to understand a lot of words in Europe. Like I'm in Montreal where they speak French, but because of understanding some basic, Latin principles, Spanish and Portuguese, Italian, then you can kind of see the word and it's just slightly different. Like because they all started as the same word, but they got corrupted over time in different locations because there were different tribes, different nations, kingdoms. So language is very
It's
powerful.
yeah, it's really, really powerful. And it's
Yeah.
really beautiful to see how you can express yourself and teach this Asian wisdom that is not very easy to, to pass through just to explain like in other languages. So it's really impressive, really impressive. And if someone is just beginning their spiritual journey through just yoga, I'm saying like the body movement, or just interested in things that the topics, what are the teachings that you think is the most important?
One has to start where they have the most interest. Some people are more interested in asana, some people are more interested in the spiritual side. Just like this wonderful studio in Miami where I learned. They mix, it's like Jiva Mukti influence as well. So they mix, Jiva Mukti is a school in New York. They mix kirtan, mantra, some dharma talks. This is kind of a template from Jiva Mukti. There's a school in New York, one of the oldest schools in the West called Dharma Yoga. He often does kirtan, he often talks about philosophy. He's a strong proponent of veganism in his classes. Almost every class I've been to, he puts a plug. So you see every school, if you see like Iyengar also, he was actually a priest in a temple. So some people are interested in asana, some in meditation, some in pranayama. So you can start with what you're interested in, but ultimately we should start to try and find out the deeper part of yoga. I just did a reel about this on Instagram actually. That why did you see that reel? I don't know if you saw it, but
The
I was
last
making yeah.
Yeah.
So the main theme was that people say, why should I study yoga philosophy? I just want to learn asana. Then I explained
Yeah.
because even if you do not study philosophy, you have a philosophy. But if you don't study it, then you don't know where you're going with it. There are many philosophies which are because you don't study philosophy, but you are taught a philosophy because a philosophy means a set of morals, guidelines, beliefs that you live by. So if you have a house with a lot of space, you're either going to fill it with really nice things, keep it clean, organized, or it's going to fill up with junk. But that's the nature of the mind. It has to be filled with something. So if you're not systematically, carefully, and very lovingly guiding your mind in the right direction, then it's either going to go up or down. The mind is not static.
Yeah.
Krishna
Yeah.
says in the
And
Gita, you cannot control it like the wind. So either you're going to go in a positive direction, or naturally the mind goes down, just like gravity pulls things down. So if you want to go higher like a bird, you have to keep flapping the wings. You have to keep practicing. So you can start with mantra chanting and books, some like Bhagavad Gita, some books like this.
And today there's so much information online about spirituality. How do you personally stay grounded while navigating social media and gurus, or I don't know, false gurus, and teaching today's yoga, world? What practice help you remain connected to what really feels true to you?
Yes. So I have the benefit of growing up in the West, but also coming from a half Indian background and coming from a very ancient tradition from India. So, for instance, if you grow up from a young age and your father is a goldsmith, then you know much better and you work with him, you grow up seeing gold, etc. from a young age, you have a much better chance of detecting fake gold than somebody who's never seen gold before. Like I personally, in my life, I don't own any gold. My parents have gold, but I don't know where it is. So, I never see it. So if somebody gives me fool's gold and real gold, I cannot tell the difference because I don't have the background. So I was very fortunate to have that background, but most people in the West do not. So therefore, it's very easy to get cheated or misled or be taught a watered down version, a business friendly version of spirituality. But the beautiful thing in spirituality is anybody who is sincerely seeking God, they will find God. Because God is, according very clearly explained in the Vedic literatures and in all traditions, actually, that God is inside of us, in our heart, and He's listening to us at all times. In the Christian tradition, that's called like the Holy Ghost, the Holy Spirit. In Sanskrit, it's called the Super Soul, or the Super Alma, or Super, in Portuguese, Super Alma, I think also, or in Italian, Super Anima. So actually, no one gets cheated if they're sincere, actually. But generally, our approach to spirituality is we are not trying to reach God to offer love to God. We are trying to reach God so that God can give us something, which means it's not love, it's a business relationship or it's a self-centered relationship. But if our love for God is pure, or even if we have a little sincerity, God will reciprocate according to that. But at the same time, if you want to get the ultimate, like deepest aspect of yoga, honestly, I would say 95% of the yoga world cannot offer that, unfortunately. It either you offer you some basic asana, maybe offer you some watered down version of the Bhagavad Gita. It may offer you a course on something which is kind of very biased, or it's like the Western social theories filter on the ancient Indian tradition, etc. So if you know basic Sanskrit, it's easier, but ultimately you have to find a very traditional, ancient tradition which is still relevant in the modern times. There's one of my favorite translation of Bhagavad Gita. It's called Bhagavad Gita as it is, or in Spanish will be tal como es. I don't know in Portuguese how you say.
Como é.
Como es, sí. And in the introduction, the author writes, he's called Swami Prabhupada. In my opinion, his translation is the best quality translation because it factors in two most important things. Just like in law, you have to understand the letter of the law, the exact words, but also the spirit of the law. So Western academe, they generally translate it as a letter of the law, or if they explain it, they don't understand it through the spirit of the tradition because they don't practice the tradition. A professor who's getting paid Bhagavad Gita but doesn't follow it, he may know the letter of the law well, but he doesn't know the spirit of the law. So you have to be a scholar, but you also have to be a devotee. So he writes in that book, there are over 300 translations of the Bhagavad Gita, but none of them actually capture both of these things perfectly. Therefore, because I'm coming from a 5,000-year-old tradition and I've been practicing this my whole life, I'm not coming here to cheat you. I'm coming here to give you the correct thing, and it's up to you whether you want to practice it or not. Generally, people, they want to get paid, they want to become famous, they want to exploit others. There's some material motivation. So this is the difficulty with a lot of the yoga world now. But I can recommend books like that. But The Science of Self-Realization is also very nice. So, La Ciencia de Autorrealización, something like that in Portuguese. So you have to find this. There's one project in Brazil, one of the ladies who runs it, she's my very good friend. It's called Krishna West, like Oeste. So he's teaching because Krishna is the main protagonist of all the Vedic texts, the most popular kind of avatar. Avatar means form of God. It generally is considered the original form of God. Like Shiva, Durga, there's different forms, but in the Indic tradition, they don't believe there is many gods. They actually believe there is one supreme, but it appears in different forms. So Krishna is generally taken as the original form. That's why Bhagavad Gita in India is the most prominent scripture of India. It's like the Bible of India. So that basically is a school in Brazil which teaches Bhagavad Gita directly from the text without any speculation, interpolation, or addition. Just they study directly the Sanskrit.
Yeah, send me please the details, and I can put here below all that in the description, so people can find them. And Sandeepani, the last question for our talk. You see, I told you 25 minutes, you're 35 minutes. You have a lot to share. What is nourishing your soul these days?
I'm redeveloping my relationship with the most important meditation according to the yoga tradition. There's the most famous book in the West about yoga, which is called Yoga Sutras. Maybe you heard of it. Actually, we do. I was teaching that at Ahana for some years, but now I left Miami. But when I was in Miami, I was teaching the Yoga Sutras with a lady called Catherine. So you can also get Yoga Sutras. It's a very good book. The best translation is Edwin Bryant. I believe it's in Portuguese as well. So in that book, it explains the most important meditation is something called japa. Japa means to recite softly mantra so you can hear it, but others cannot hear it. And you're supposed to sit down, close your eyes. You can get beads. I actually have beads here because I do this every day for 2 hours. So you can see these beautiful beads. So there are many mantra you can chant, but mantra is not like a candy shop. You just pick whatever candy you want. Mantra is like a medicine. So you have to be prescribed medicine by the doctor. So the most prescribed mantra for this age, which is the Bronze Age, the worst age of the seasons of time right now, is called Hare Krishna mantra. So I chant on this bead every day, Hare Krishna mantra. The mantra is very simple: Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. So I'm redeveloping my relationship with that meditation because I had a very busy year, so I didn't have enough time to really take it deeply and practice it for long, periods of a day. So I'm trying to go deeper in that. So for me, that is the most peace and bliss in my spiritual practice right now. Is this: you close your eyes and you sit, or you can sit by a beautiful lake or river or in the forest, and you just hear yourself chanting. The goal is to hear yourself chanting sincerely this mantra. And this is like cleaning of the last stress, anxiety, anger, everything in the mind, negative. It helps to clean. And you feel more peace and happiness and connected to God.
That's beautiful. I remember doing that during the teacher training at Ahana. We're doing this every day in the walk. Was beautiful. Sandeepani, thank you so much for your generosity, your time, for sharing all this beautiful journey with us. It was really an honor for me. So where can people find you and learn more about your work?
I'm not sure how it will show up on this video, but it's my page. You can see it's a Sandeepani, SANDIPANI 108 on Instagram, TikTok, etc. YouTube as well. If you want to, I have a lot of lectures in English and Spanish on my YouTube, around 200-300 of them.
Oh, I'm gonna put this here. I'm gonna find it and I'm gonna add here too. So thank you.
They're all in high quality, so the sound is everything is very clear. So if you want to watch, you can watch.
That's good. That's good. Well, so you're closing. Thank you so much for your time. Thank you to everyone for watch it. If you enjoyed this episode, don't forget to subscribe, leave a comment, share with someone you love, and help us bring these conversations to more people around the world. And I will see you in the next episode of AlmaFlow podcast. Thank you so much.
Thank you very much. Prazer grande. Thank you.
Prazer.